All right, so this is video 21, and we're going to be talking about Chester Southam's cancer studies. And for the most part, the stuff that we're going to be talking about is all described by Skloot in our primary book, but I want to put it in some context to give you a sense of the larger meaning of it. So one thing to think about is the history of bioethics in the 20th century, medical ethics in the 20th century, and this is a point that I've been trying to emphasize. So one thing that I've asked you to keep track of are these three major ethics declarations, starting in 1947 after World War II and the revelations of the atrocities committed by Nazi doctors in concentration camps. We get the arrival of the Nuremberg Code. I guess the other thing that I mentioned in presenting this is that Japanese atrocities against Koreans and Chinese people were not actually covered in this. The Nuremberg Code itself established a lot of really important ideas, including the primacy of consent and informed consent as central to medical ethics and especially the ethics of human experimentation. But it wasn't, for the most part, taken to heart. You start to get some progress by 1964 with the first Helsinki Declaration. This was established by the World Medical Association, which was, again, actually an organization founded in the wake of World War II, primarily by doctors on the Allied side. But it's not until 1978 in the Belmont Report, in the wake of the Tuskegee syphilis revelations, that you really see actual medical practice on a day-to-day level change. And that's because the Belmont Report was written into United States law via the Common Rule at a time in which the United States was funding basically all of the medical research in the world. So where does Southam's experiments fall? Between 1947 and 1964. In fact, his experiments ended right before the first Helsinki Declaration. So he is operating at a time in which actually he is legally bound by international law, by the Nuremberg Code, but for the most part, no one pays any attention to that. So let's take a look at the Nuremberg Code again. The Nuremberg Code established a lot of things that are really important in medical ethics and medical experimentation on human subjects. First and foremost, number one, subjects must give informed consent. Experiments must yield results that are good for society, right? So you can't just do what actually a lot of medical experimentation has done in the past, including the Nazi experiments, right? The Nazis would just dump people in a vat of ice water and see how long it took them to freeze to death. And then the twin experiments were horrific. Mengele would torture one twin to see if it had an effect on the other. In any case, the point is, if you look at point items 2 and 6 here, they're all just about the fact that this actually, you can't just do this at random. You've got to have some good that you're aiming for, right? So right now there are human experimentation trials going on with COVID vaccines. And the ethics of those can be complicated because they are right now placebo tests. That is, we don't have any other preventative measures for COVID, so some people are getting placebos and some people aren't. But all of this is in benefit, is to deal with a global pandemic, that's killed 230,000 people in the United States alone. Okay. So I'm not running through all the items in the Nuremberg Code. We're going to have an exercise where you have to apply the code to Southam's experiments. So you should take a look at these on your own. You need to and think about it. So in any case, that's what's in effect, at least on a technical level, when Southam begins his experiments. So from 1954 to 1964, Southam injected patients with HeLa and other cancer cells to test the body's ability to fight off foreign cancer cells. It's worth noting that Skloot emphasizes this as part of the story of HeLa, right? One of the crazy adventures of the tumor taken from Henrietta Lacks was used in these experiments. But actually, Southam used cancer cells from a bunch of different sources. Okay. So we can break up Southam's experiments into 3 rounds, roughly. First round was 14 terminal patients at Sloan Kettering in 1954. Each round has sort of different levels of risk and different levels of informed consent. So the subjects were 14 terminal cancer patients. The subjects were told their immune systems were being tested and that a lump would probably develop that he would have to remove. All patients developed tumors which were removed or which disappeared on their own. 4 patients had tumors that regrew repeatedly after being cut out. In 1 patient, the new cancer metastasized to the lymph nodes. This is already someone who has metastasized cancer, and now they have a second metastasized cancer. It's also worth noting that at this point, cancer treatments have actually advanced a lot since 1954. Lots of cancers are manageable, but that's not the case here. In 2 patients, the implanted cancer was still growing in the patient when the patient died. Okay. So that's the level of risk and the level of consent understanding that the patients had. Round 2 is perhaps most interesting from round 2 is different. You have 14 healthy subjects in the first study, and this is from the Ohio State Penitentiary. All prisoners are told that they're going to be injected with cancer, so they are fully informed of this. You can argue that they are not in a position to give decent consent because they're what we call a vulnerable population. They're in prison. A lot of patients volunteered out of a desire to do penance. All subjects rejected the cancer. But here's something important. The fact that a healthy body would totally reject foreign cancer cells was considered a finding of this study, right? Basic science, when you go into an experiment, there has to be something that you don't know that you think you will know afterwards. And so one of the things that they didn't know here was whether the bodies of these healthy patients would actually reject the cancer cells. It turned out that these healthy patients did not get sick, but that was not known going in. Okay, so here are some cell pictures from one of Southam's publications. It's worth noting that like the Tuskegee syphilis studies, these were being done in complete public. There was nothing hidden about them. The only thing that prevented the public from learning about them is that a lot of people, regular people, weren't reading these medical journals. But the scientists we're having an open conversation about this. So here's another chart from one of his publications. And actually, you can see from the left-hand corner that HeLa is only one of the things that he implanted. And so that's the top item on this list. So what happens is between 56 and 63, Southam has appointments at a couple hospitals, and he just starts injecting people with cancer, really, well, not randomly, but broadly. So approximately 600 patients were experimented on. About half already had cancer. Every gynecological survey patient in 2 hospitals were treated with HeLa. So now he's really going, right? He is injecting not just cancer, but this crazy, the crazy HeLa cancer cells, the immortal cells, wherever he is working. And again, the finding seems to be pretty solid. People who are healthy to begin with can reject the cells. People who are not healthy to begin with do not reject the cells. This actually should be a situation that's familiar to us now in COVID, right? Where COVID is, your chances of bad results from COVID go up so dramatically if you've got some other background condition. But again, this is a finding. This was not something that Southam knew in advance. The final experiment. Southam proposes injecting 22 elderly patients at the Jewish Chronic Disease Hospital with HeLa. The patients had senile dementia and would not be able to understand the procedure if it was explained to them, which it wasn't. 3 doctors, all Jewish people with knowledge of the Nuremberg trials, refused. And that's how the studies made it from the medical journals to the popular newspapers. It became public knowledge. And again, this is similar to the leaking of the revelations of the information of the Tuskegee syphilis trial, in that second-generation Jewish immigrants, people whose parents lived through the Holocaust and grew up being told never again, realized that never again was something that they had to actually do, and reported what was going on. All right, a couple other things. So this is an interesting little bit. This is there's a meeting of the New York Pathological Society while Southam is conducting these experiments, and he's presenting his results. And a guy named Harry S.N. Green actually raises a moral objection. And this is at a scientific study where these results are being discussed. I would also like to raise the point as to the necessity of using human beings in a subject such as this. In some backwoods districts of New England, he says ironically, remote from the sophisticated institutions of this city, we still believe in the dignity of man. You can tell he's angry. That belief may be an illusion, and it probably is, but it's an illusion that surely should be preserved and fostered. This is an interesting little aside for a philosopher, because he's questioning what we call the foundations of ethics. He is in a state of moral shock that something is going on. And then he's wondering, well, what is the dignity of humanity anyway? And he presents a kind of a fictionalist response. Well, I don't know. Maybe it's an illusion, but it's something that I believe in. He's wondering about the metaphysics of morality, but he's not doubting that his desire to promote morality. This is Southam's response. This is so he has done among other things his experiments on the prisoners, um, but be that as it may, a major point of philosophic difference is Mr. Green's statement concerning the dignity of man. I would say that the best answer to this would be the attitude of those people who are involved with the experiments as recipients. What do the volunteers themselves think about their personal dignity? So he is relying on the fact that in the prison experiments, unlike other experiments, the volunteers had full information about the experiment. But then Southam goes on to say something kind of strange. I have no idea how many of you have been inside a prison, but after 16 visits, I have come to the conclusion that the inside of the prison is very much like the outside of the prison, and that the individuals there, at the very least, have in their own minds just as much dignity and as much individuality as we have here. So he's been inside jail 16 times, and he's now presenting himself as an authority on what it's like for a prisoner in a jail. And then he's saying he's trying to use the experimental subjects for his own defense. He's like saying, oh, well, it's not just that they volunteered, but I think they have dignity and they can volunteer. And you're the one who's really challenging the dignity of these people. But, his reply here seems defensive and weak to me, even though he is talking about the one case where his arguments are the strongest. It's not like random gynecological surgery patients from those two hospitals where, patients didn't even know what was going on. But to me, the real kicker about all of this, everything that Southam does, is this comment here that is quoted by Skloot. Southam is insisting that his experiments were not at all dangerous. And part of the way he does that is by relying on the results of the experiments themselves. Well, I've shown that no one could be killed by it, so therefore it was safe. But in any case, someone asks Southam, why, if the injections were as safe as he swore they were, why he didn't inject himself. Let's face it, Southam responded, there are relatively few skilled cancer researchers, and it seems stupid to even take the little risk. So, he isn't willing to take this risk himself, and he's doing it because he thinks himself to be more valuable than his patients. And he is more valuable, he says, because he is a skilled cancer researcher. He is a doctor. These other people are mere prisoners. So part of the premise of what he's doing seems to be that he's better than other people. And this goes very much against both the spirit of the Nuremberg Declaration and what Dr. Green was saying before about human dignity, which really is meant to be something that is universally distributed. It's not that some people have more human value than others, right? This is just a basic principle of universal human rights. So, Southam's experiments were, as the title suggests, just deplorable. The title of this chapter suggests deplorable. To this day, though, you find people defending them. I gave you some essays on the nature of informed consent from a collection of essays about consent, and one of those essays actually defends the Southam experiment. Not the ones that I read. Another essay in that collection defends Southam's experiments. And a lot of what's happened here is something called disciplinary capture. Professional ethicists mostly work with doctors, and so they come to see things from the doctor's point of view and from the experimenter's point of view. And so you will always be able to find medical ethicists trying to justify experiments like Chester Southam's. We can stop there. So your exercise is going to be about analyzing Southam from the point of view of the Nuremberg Code.